Justice Gorsuch?
General, let me suggest to you that perhaps Congress has delegated some legislative power to these agencies. Let's just hypothesize that. And let's hypothesize, too, that this court has taken a hands-off approach to that problem through something called the intelligible principle doctrine, which has grown increasingly toothless with time. Is the answer, perhaps, to reinvigorate the intelligible principle doctrine and recognize that Congress cannot delegate its legislative authority? Is the water warm, General?
Sorry, what was the last? I couldn't hear the last bit.
Is the water warm?
Is the water warm? Suffice to say, let me say one thing in response to that. It is much easier to cure. Obviously, members of this court have debated the scope of the non-delegation doctrine. The challenge of finding the right standard there is something we've discussed in the past. Here, though, this wolf comes as a wolf, right? I mean, the restriction on executive power is right there in the statute. It's easy to remedy by excising the removal restriction in the
There are a lot of
cases.
wolves around here, General. That one thing our framers knew is that every political actor seeks to enhance its own power. We all know that to be true from our own experiences. And this court, as part of this bargain, has allowed these agencies to exercise both executive and legislative. Justice Sutherland, whose name hasn't been invoked around here in quite a while, his language about quasi-legislative and quasi-judicial and quasi-this powers. And this court has allowed that for a very long time. But if we're not going to allow it any longer, I take the point that this has allowed a bargain where a lot of legislative power has moved into these agencies. But if they're now going to be controlled by the president, it seems to me all the more imperative to do something about it.
I agree with that, and I can't address all the wolves in the world, but this wolf, when it comes to constitutional structure, is Fenris, the most dangerous wolf in the history of Norse mythology.
And let me ask you about the judicial power. To the extent we're worried about the tax court or the court of claims, maybe despite what people think, maybe some of them might be, I don't know, but maybe they're Article III courts and the removal restrictions are impermissible. Thoughts?
There definitely could be arguments like that. I'm not taking a position on the validity or non-validity of any of those, which are not presented here, but certainly commentators have argued that things like the federal magistrate judges and the bankruptcy courts seem to be real adjuncts to Article III courts, and an argument might be made of that nature. There are line drawing problems there. We haven't addressed them here. I don't have the federal government's concerted answer to that, but certainly those line drawing problems would go to whether what is going on is judicial power or executive power.
The adjudication of private rights is different, we have said, than the adjudication of public rights.
And again, yes, those would implicate all those line drawing problems.
Thank you.